How's it going?
Good, and you?
I'm great. How's it like in California? You're on West Coast time, right?
Got my jacket on. It's cold here. Yeah,
I bet. Oh my gosh, I wish it was cold here. I'm in Florida. It's like 85 degrees.
I know. I wish I was there. I left Miami to come back here and visit my family. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Do you live in Miami?
I live in Miami Beach.
Ah, do you like it?
It's fantastic. Yeah.
I'm in Delray, so we're not too far from each other.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about your background and everything with your business and what you do, and everything with health.
Right.
And certain diets that you suggest, that you follow, intermittent fasting, keto, all these types of things. I want to discuss this with you. So first, tell me a little bit about what your background is and how you got started.
So, it's an eclectic background. I was an endurance athlete in my youth. Started out running marathons pretty early, and got into human performance and the pursuit of faster times as a runner. And I know you have some of that background as well.
Yes.
um, so I was always looking for ways in which I could improve my performance, whether it was training methods, putting in more miles, or some sort of dietary intervention, or sometimes supplements. If there was some sort of a supplement that I could take that improved my performance. And over the years, I put in a lot of miles. I raced well. I had a good career as a marathoner and then as a triathlete. But I started to fall apart probably sooner than I should have. And it wasn't just the mileage. I found out later, it was the diet, the inflammatory aspect of my diet, the massive amounts of carbs that I was eating, and the assumption that I could that my body would burn up any fuel I put in it, so it didn't matter the quality of the carbs or anything like that. So started looking. Well, I got injured and I got sick. I had as a result of the diet. I realized years later that it was causing my IBS and my arthritis and my GERD and everything else that was wrong with me. So when I retired from competition, I set about to see if I could find ways that I could be strong and lean and fit and happy and healthy and productive without struggle and suffer and sacrifice. And so that kind of led me into a lifelong pursuit of figuring out what it was that our body needs to thrive. And I call it looking for those hidden genetic switches. So I discovered pretty early on that much of what happens to us when we engage in a behavior, whether it's our choices of food, our choices of workout behavior, sleep, sun exposure, all these things work by turning genes on or off. And we can rebuild and repair and renew ourselves really on a daily basis based on these habits, these lifestyle habits, the types of food, the types of exercise, the types of, how much sleep we get. So I started a blog in 2006 called Mark's Daily Apple. And that was my arena in which I could espouse some of these ideas that I'd come across and some of this research that I'd done, and hopefully change other people's lives and maybe allow them to avoid some of the mistakes that I'd made along the way. And yeah, so I've written several books over the years. The first one was Primal Blueprint. The most recent is called 2 Meals a Day, and it basically, takes all the work I've done and kind of distills it down into this notion that we just eat too damn much food, and every one of us, for the most part. And so, with that understanding that we don't really need to be stuffing our faces all day long, 3 meals a day or 3 meals and 2 snacks, and then there is an optimal amount of food that we should take in. And one of the greatest revelations is that the more time we spend not eating, the more time our body has to repair itself and rebuild itself and regenerate itself. And obviously the challenge here is to not get hungry. Mm-hmm. So the whole basis of the book is, how do you develop this metabolic flexibility that allows you to go longer periods of time without feeling like you have to eat?
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are very caught up in keto and low carb and, different diet types. And I think what you believe is that, your most recent book is that intermittent fasting is kind of the way to go, correct?
Yeah, and I don't even like the term intermittent fasting as much as I like intermittent eating. So, fasting sort of, again, suggests that there's going to be some amount of pain or sacrifice, that you're going to have to, go hungry and choose not to eat, and then overcome some, tendency to go run for the refrigerator. So the idea about intermittent eating is that you just choose to eat when you're hungry, and then choose not to eat when you're not hungry, and develop, I'd almost call it a skill, but it's just another habit of understanding intuitively that you have plenty of fuel on your body at all times. And if you've developed this metabolic flexibility, this ability to burn fat when and if you are not around food, and your body has, look, I'm 10% body fat. I have 30 pounds of not 30 pounds, what do I have of fat on me? I have 15 pounds, 30,000 calories of fat on me. Plenty to last me for weeks, without having to eat. Now, I'm never going to go weeks without eating, but there's this confidence that I have that if I skip a meal or 2 meals, or go a day without eating, which I sometimes do, wow, that there's plenty of fuel on me that's going to, not only get me through that period of time, but allow me to thrive and be productive and not even think about being hungry. And that's the real magic of this metabolic flexibility, being able to extract energy from whatever energy substrate is available, whether it's the glucose in your bloodstream, the glycogen in your muscles, the fat on your body, the fat on your plate of food, the ketones that your liver makes. All of these are energy substrates, and they're all available to somebody who is metabolically flexible. The problem is, so many of us are not metabolically flexible. So many of us have become carbohydrate dependent over the years that we really never build the metabolic machinery that allows us to burn fat efficiently, when we're not around food. And so we constantly have to snack on carbs to keep our blood sugar up. The brain never gets a chance to explore the wonders of ketones as a fuel. And we're stuck in this kind of rut of having to eat every couple of hours or get hangry. And that's sort of the antithesis of this metabolic flexibility.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people especially that work out a lot, think that they need a certain amount of protein in order to maintain their muscle and build their muscle. And we've found out recently that you don't need this massive amount of protein. So for someone like you, because you are lean, you're fit, you work out, what would you suggest as someone that works out, their intermittent fasting eating schedule, to get the nutrients in and get them out enough protein that they need and enough fuel that they need within the day?
Yeah, well, so that's a great question. And the body, if you develop this metabolic machinery, if you become metabolically flexible, one of the things that happens as a result of this genetic sort of adaptation, this gene upregulation, is that you start to spare amino acids. You have this protein sparing effect. The body doesn't tend to view amino acids as a fuel anymore because it's so good at burning fat. So you tend not to be careless. The body tends not to be careless with the amino acids you take in. And by careless, I mean so many people who are not metabolically flexible will eat protein and carbs, and when they're out of carbs, the body will look to the protein and say, well, we can make more carbs out of some of this protein. So the body tends to even use the excess protein as a source of raw materials to build more carbohydrates, to build more glucose. That's one issue. And then people who consume too much protein will also have a situation where the body would just want to get rid of it, deaminate the proteins, and you pee them out. This sort of ceases when you become metabolically flexible. And so we don't the body tends to want to conserve amino acids and protein. And we've referred to it as like a protein sink. There's always an amount of protein available for rebuilding and repairing muscle, or making new amino acids, or making new enzymes in the body. And as a result, I don't think in terms of like from one meal to the next, like how many grams of protein do I need at breakfast, and then again at lunch, and then again at dinner. I don't even think necessarily in how many grams of protein do I need in a day. I tend to think more in terms of like, okay, over the next 3 days, over the past 3 days, how many grams of protein have I consumed? And so if one day I had 220 grams of protein and the other day I had 60 grams of protein, on balance, I still was able to supply this conceptual protein sink in my body with enough amino acids to do everything it needs to do to build muscle or repair muscle, retain muscle, and make enzymes.
So on days that you fast completely and you say that you're not eating much at all, do you find that the next day you kind of eat more to make up for that, or you don't find yourself any hungrier than you normally would be?
I don't. In fact, as you get comfortable with this concept, you become very comfortable with the fact that you really don't need that much food to get from one day to the next, or even 1 week to the next. Now, over time, obviously, you have to sort of average out this thing. But one of the things that happens when I go, like sometimes I'll go dinner to dinner, right? I'll have a dinner one day and then I won't eat until dinner the next day, for example. There's almost a tendency to undereat, and you have to be like, I have to be conscious that I eat enough, not that I eat not that I overeat, but that I eat enough. Just to be clear that I do, because it's so comfortable to stop eating before I'm full, or before any of the other metrics that we used to like. Is my plate empty? Am I feeling full? None of those things mean anything to me anymore. It's literally, do I feel like having another bite? And if the answer is no, then I have to be perfectly fine with going, you know what? My body is a machine. It's great. It's flexible. It's efficient. I can extract energy from, again, all these different substrates, whether it's glycogen in my muscles or fat that's still stored on my low body fat body. And so sorry, long-winded answer to your question, but I tend not to overeat. And if for any reason I do, I tend to regret it, because it's overeating is an uncomfortable thing for me. And I have to sort to my days of being an endurance athlete where I overate at every meal, and I was literally always uncomfortable.
I can relate.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because a lot of the times I go through my day and I'm like, God, it's wasting so much time to sit down and eat this meal and to stop and get this meal. And if I could make it to where I could eat 1 to 2 meals a day, I feel like my whole day would be more efficient. I would get more done. I'd be more productive. I'd have more energy because you're not, getting tired from each. I mean, the whole thing makes perfect sense. And I want to hear actually what your dinner looks like. Like, what's a typical dinner for you for that 1 meal a day or 2 meals?
Yeah. So if it's 2 meals, I'll have a smallish lunch, I guess. And I do like protein. So, I typically would have a piece of fish for lunch with some small amount of green vegetables. I live in a great condo in Miami. So when I'm home, we have a restaurant right on property, and they do great sashimi and great sushi. So I might have some combination of shrimp and crab salad, or salmon tataki, for instance, for lunch. Not much. And then I do like to make an occasion of dinner. And typically for me, dinner is like a nice New York steak with some grilled vegetables. And I will say that I've over the years, I've reduced the amount of vegetables I take in, partly because I want to finish the whole steak, and I want to have enough room to finish the steak, and that goes more into how hungry am I for dinner and things like that. So my typical dinner would be like a ribeye with some grilled vegetables and a glass of wine, red wine. I mean, it's like my ideal meal, and lucky me, I get to have that ideal meal a lot. But I like lamb chops, so I'll have lamb chops every once in a while for dinner. But it's almost invariably some large form of large-ish, not huge, but some form of meat, and then a regular portion or two of some form of green vegetable, and that's pretty much it. I don't do a lot of starchy carbs, so I don't do bread much. I mean, once in a while, I have a piece of bread with a giant
Good for you.
on it. Yeah. I'm not that draconian about it. Look, as I tell people, I enjoy every bite of food I put in my mouth. So I don't force myself to eat something that somebody else says, well, this is really, really good for you. You should try this. It doesn't taste that good, but it's really good for you. No, not interested. I want every bite of food I eat to be spectacular. So that's kind of how I orchestrate my meals.
That's great. You should enjoy every bit of food that you're eating. And my question for you is, you don't find that you have any, nutrient deficiencies, or you have to supplement with something else to get those nutrients in that you would typically be getting from food?
I mean, that's been part of my experiment the last 5 years, is that I don't feel like I'm deficient in any of the nutrients. I spend a lot of time in the sun, so I get a lot of vitamin D, and I think that's probably the most critical of all the nutrients. I do supplement with collagen, because I think collagen is a critical component that ought to be maybe even a separate macronutrient that not a lot of people consume enough of, and it's such a important raw material for repair of tendons and ligaments and fascia, connective tissue, skin, hair, nails, even bones. So I do supplement with collagen. My company makes a collagen supplement. That's how important I thought it was that I needed to have something beyond what I could get from, say, bone broth or chicken skin, in terms of those particular amino acids that are involved in rebuilding and repairing collagen.
Got it. Yeah, the whole concept is so interesting because it's totally opposite from what people think today and age. So going back to the business, you started out with a blog and you turned that into a business. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been an entrepreneur, so I've always had something going on. I was a personal trainer in the 80s, back before it was even, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I made a lot of money doing that because I was one of those early trainers to the stars, in LA.
Amazing.
Started writing books on training. So I self-published my first bunch of books. When I started a supplement company in 1997, and again was initially designing the supplements for athletes who were looking for ways to recover quickly from their workouts. But turned out that most of my customers were people who were interested in anti-aging. So a lot of my sports supplements became anti-aging supplements. And that was really my business for a long time. And when I started Mark's Daily Apple, my blog, in 2006, that was a platform to sell the supplements. And it went reasonably well, but over the years, I realized I was writing more about eating real food and not taking supplements, or making sure that you have access to the micronutrients from the food that you are eating. And then in 2014, a light bulb went on in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm writing about what happens when you get rid of sugar and processed grains and industrial seed oils, and you limit your diet to real food: meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, vegetables, a little bit of fruit. What makes the difference in the sustainability of that way of eating are the methods of preparation, the sauces, the dressings, the toppings, the things you put on the food that give it variety from one day to the next. And I recognized that there was no company that was making truly better for you mayonnaise or truly better for you salad dressings. I mean, companies were trying, but they weren't, I don't think they were succeeding very well. So I started this company called Primal Kitchen with the sole purpose of making the sorts of sauces and dressings and toppings that I would want to buy and I would want to put on my food to make it more flavorful and feel good about putting on the food, to the extent that I could use it with what I call reckless abandon. I didn't have to use it sparingly because, So started Primal Kitchen 2014, shipped our first product in 2015, and grew very rapidly from that point on, and to the point that it's now owned by Kraft Heinz, and it's one of their flagship marquee, better for you, healthy sellers of condiments and salad dressings pasta sauces and things like that.
I bought it years ago and I loved it. So I thought it was super cool that, you created that. So what was your first step with getting that brand out there? Was it hiring a team? Was it kind of getting the message out there on your own first and then kind of taking on other people to help with that? What was kind of the steps that you took?
I think I had a unique situation in that I had spent 10 years building a brand before I launched that product. So when I launched the first avocado oil-based mayonnaise, and that was the one product we launched, we sold, I think, 10,000 jars the first 2 weeks because I had a platform of millions of viewers on Mark's Daily Apple and people who read my book and people who were, I think, ready, willing, and able to spend a little bit more money for a product that was demonstrably better than every other product in that category. And then I also was lucky to kind of circumvent some of the normal processes of getting into grocery stores because, for instance, one of the buyers in the Rocky Mountain region of Whole Foods was a fan of mine and had read a lot of my books and basically said, look, Mark, whatever you guys make, we get it, we understand it, we need it, and we will promote it. And so we got into Whole Foods very quickly, what they call off review. We didn't have to wait a year to get reviewed and wait for somebody else to drop out before we could fill their space on the shelf. So I was fortunate in that, but also I think the main point was I had already spent 10 years establishing a brand, building credibility and authenticity and all of those sort of cliche words they use now, but it really paid off when we did finally launch the product. Now, that was part of it. The other part was I assembled a team. I found a young woman, Morgan Bueller, who had been she'd been in the marketing department at Kavita, the sparkling probiotic company, and I'd met her at an event, and I thought she was smart and capable and fantastic. And so when I started my team, she was the first person I put on my team, and I really, and then I sort of gave her permission to go hire people that she felt would, round out the team in a way that kept the DNA of the philosophy of the Primal Blueprint and Primal Kitchen and this idea that food should be functional but should also taste great. And so that early, the build out of the team was also a major reason for the success, because we had, people who we literally hired for their attitude first and their ability second.
I love that. I mean, the people that you hire have to match the brand and the intentions and what you're all about. So I think that's amazing that you did that. And I think it's so important that you talk about building an audience and building a fan base first. And then they kind of know what you're all about. And then whatever product you're putting out, they're going to want to check it out. They're going to believe in it as well because they believe in you. So I think, building a brand, especially in today's day and age, is so important. And I think that's great that you mentioned that, because it's been a long journey for you and clearly it's paid off. So it's just amazing to hear. Now, do you think there are any foods that are off limits, would you say? Things like dairy, things like, different things like this?
Foods sort of exist on a spectrum. Dairy is a good example. So there are some forms of dairy that I think are spectacular. Butter, I love butter, ghee, real heavy cream. On the other hand, there are some forms of dairy, 2% skim, homogenized pasteurized, that I think are probably pretty bad for you, and I would stay away from them. There's some artisanal cheeses that are fantastic, and I love the fact that I can include them in my diet. But there's some other cheeses that are made with, less than desirable ingredients that I would stay away from. So there are, I like to drink red wine, but some wines are full of sugar and additives and sulfites, added sulfites, and all sorts of things that are nasty. But other wines are made without added sugar. They're tested for low sugar. They don't have the approved additives that you don't even have to disclose on the label. So as we go through fruits, some fruits I would stay away from for their high sugar content. Others, blueberries and raspberries, I include in my eating strategy on occasion. They're still full of sugar, but they're more tart and they have less sugar per serving, et cetera, et cetera. So I like to look at every sort of category of food and kind of from a knowledge base and an intuition decide if that's something I want to sink my teeth into or not.
That's a good philosophy behind it. And what does your day-to-day look like now? You've been on this journey for a while, and it seems like you have balance in your life as well, which I think is impressive for an entrepreneur and someone like you. So what is your typical day-to-day?
So like right now I'm in California where it's 45 degrees. I'm wearing my jacket and
Yeah.
I like being outside. So I'll probably go out and I have a fat bike in my home in Miami Beach, and I have a fat bike here in LA. And so that's one of the things I like to do. It's the fat bikes are those 4.5-inch wide tires,
Yes.
and I like to literally ride on the beach. I ride on the sand, and it's an incredible workout, and I get to be on the beach, and so that's one of my fun things to do. I do a lot of stand-up paddling. I still play ultimate frisbee. I have an electric foil, one of the surfboard that kind of rides above the water on a wing. I work out in the gym twice a week. So, normally what happens, my day is I get up usually after about 8.5 hours of sleep.
Amazing.
A number of which I am very proud and will defend as very healthy. Have a big cup of coffee. I do a couple of crossword puzzles every morning before I get started on my regular day, just kind of get my brain, amped up.
Yeah.
Do some work, either writing, because I'm always working on a book, or a blog post, or answering emails. And then I take a break around 10 or 10:30, go to the gym or go out and go for a ride or, go for a hike or do something active. First meal is usually around 1:30, and again, it's a small lunch, I guess you would call it, even though it's a breaking of the fast. So you could also call it a break fast. Back to a little bit more work in the afternoon. And when I say I work, I mean, I'm still actively involved in Primal Kitchen. So I'm the brand ambassador for the lead, the face of the brand. And I'm also an angel investor in about 10 small companies. So I mentor the companies that I invest in. And then I'm in LA visiting my daughter and grandchild and son-in-law. So take a break in the afternoon, go over and visit them. I started playing drums this year, so I have
Cool.
try to do like an hour of drums a day, and then have dinner around 7:30. As I say, usually some form of quality protein, whether it's salmon or steak or lamb chops or pork chop, whatever. It's something that's very enjoyable for me. And then my wife and I, we don't make apologies for watching a little bit of TV. There's so much entertainment on TV these days. We'll do an hour or two of TV, and then typically, depending on which house we're in, because we're in Los Angeles, we have an amazing jacuzzi on the roof.
Wow.
And so we finish the day off with a jacuzzi, and then go to bed at a reasonable hour.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you do what you enjoy within the day. And I think a lot of people think as an entrepreneur, you have to work and grind and all these things, and you don't have time for the extra stuff. And it seems like you really enjoy it. So what advice would you give to someone starting out as an entrepreneur and kind of finding that balance? Or did you not have balance at the beginning?
No, I think I always had balance. And I think a part of me says it's because I was a little too lazy and I didn't want to put in those long hours. But I see on Instagram, I see all these business coaching, about grind it out and work. And I'm not, look, my advice, which is what you sort of alluded to here, is enjoy your life while it's happening. Don't wait to live your life until after you're successful, because that's just a horrible way to go about your life. Try to extract, the greatest amount of enjoyment and pleasure and fulfillment and contentment out of every moment you can. So when I was in the thick of my businesses, when I was sometimes not succeeding and worried about the success of where I was in my life, I still found time to go to every one of my kids' soccer games, to coach Little League, to ref soccer, to, to participate in my kids' lives, to spend time with them on the weekends, teach them how to boogie board. I mean, all those things that now that they're in their late 20s and early 30s, they're like, Dad, we'll never forget how much time you spent with us. That was the most important thing you could have given us. So for me, at the end of the day, the only reason I was ever trying to build a large business was to provide for my family. So to be able to provide for my family meant including quality time with them in real time while it was happening, not after I retired at 55 or 60 or 65 or whatever it was. So I think the thing about working smarter and not harder is, it's kind of a cliche, but it's still, there's a lot to it. It really does mean that you can accomplish a lot of things. My best ideas have come to me, in the shower at 9 o'clock at night, or, on a hike when I'm alone out in the mountains, when people would say, well, shouldn't you be back at your desk working? I'm like, no, I just had my greatest idea ever while I was hiking. So, and I think if COVID's taught us anything, it's that we can accomplish a lot from anywhere in the world, including the confines of our home, because we've been forced to stay there. So, I just think you need to make, as an entrepreneur, it needs to be fun. You need to be, you need to have a reason to get up every morning and be passionate about what you're doing. And as long as you enjoy your life in real time while it's happening, that's really what life's about. So I don't know if that made sense to you in the way.
Yes, I need you to mentor me. This is great. I mean, it's true. I started my business 3 years ago, and I got into you got to grind and work so hard, and I forgot about everything else. I didn't do anything except work. I was getting sick constantly. I was not sleeping. I was forgetting about my workouts. So, I mean, enjoying life while it's happening is so true, because you don't know what can happen at the end of the day. You don't know what can happen to your family. Like, you have to figure out the reason why you're doing it. And I think that's a really, really, really great point to make. And to finish out, what are you working on? What's some books that you have coming up that you want to kind of plug in?
So now my books are sort of they're a reaction to what my agent and publisher think is the next big thing. So I'm a little conflicted there, because I have some ideas about some topics I want to write on that are maybe a little bit too politically charged for my publishers. But so I'm always kind of noodling around with what the next big thing is. I think the next big thing might have to do a little bit more with maybe sustainability and climate change and stuff like that. Yeah,
you'll have to think about runs and in the shower more.
No, it's exactly right. Yeah, and then in the meantime, I do have like, people say, well, I'm retired because I sold my company, but I'm always working, and I think I have one more big idea. I don't know what it is right now, but I think in me, I've got one more big idea over the next decade that I'm going to want to play out. I just have to kind of, again, to your point, figure it out in the shower or on the run or
paddleboarding in the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Eventually, who knows how long it'll take, but it'll come.
That's right.
Keep me updated with that. I want to hear, all about what you're doing and everything like that.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sitting down with me. And where can they find you and your websites, everything like that?
Yeah, Mark's Daily Apple is the blog. The new book is 2 Meals a Day, and it's out on Amazon, of course, now. And then if you want to find out about Primal Kitchen Foods, if you somehow don't know about it, just Google Primal Kitchen. It's all over the place. We're in 50,000 stores now. It's pretty ubiquitous. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, and I hope you enjoy the weather in California.
I will. Thanks, Annie.
I know. All right. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.